Hey everyone, welcome back to March Madness of the Kirkpatrick Podcast. It is Vanessa and Jordan, and we are here to talk all about level 4, the elusive, we can never get to level 4. Jordan, tell me about your experience with level 4. Before you came here to Kirkpatrick Partners, what did you think about it? What did you know about it? And how has your mind shifted on this particular level?
I feel like I had different perceptions about level 4 in different roles that I had. So I think earlier in my career, I didn't feel like I was responsible for level 4. I just didn't see how like I connected, how training was super related to, a lot of these high level overarching strategic goals of the organization, especially me being just like entry level facilitator. But I think as time has gone on, I've started to really see how it's so important for everyone in an organization to not just understand like what those goals are, what does level 4 look like to my leadership team, but how do we all actually play a role? Because we're all in the organization. So we are inherently all responsible for level 4. So it's definitely evolved over time.
Yeah. So what are some different ways that you can measure level 4?
Mm. I think it depends on, of course, like what your goals are and even what your behavior change at level 3 is supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, some examples of what level 4 metrics could look like could be things to do with quality. So quality ratings, error rates, rework time. It could have to do with production. So if they're, especially on a production team, a sales team, those outputs are leading indicators. Audit findings, efficiency. So, like case processing time is a big one we hear with a lot of our government agencies, but even customer data like customer attrition, sales volume, customer satisfaction, internal metrics like employee satisfaction, employee retention. There really is a wide variety, but it is going to depend on like what is your goal, what level 4 metrics are you trying to impact, and of course, what behaviors you're specifically looking at level
Yeah,
3.
absolutely. And I think that so we talk about like these leading indicators and the level 4 metrics for that program or initiative. And then, of
Mhm.
course, there's the impact on the organization that you'll want to measure. And that's where that longitudinal, longer term data will really come in.
For
But I
sure.
think that there's this huge misconception that it's only the impact on the organization, like when it comes to like one big impact. And I
Yeah.
think that there's multiple impacts that a program or initiative can make, right? And again, you're going to identify that as you go through your planning process. But so often we have this thought that the only thing we're going to measure is ROI, like return on investment. And it's like, okay, is that the only thing that is important to the organization, right? Is it some sort of monetary calculation? Likely the answer is no,
Yeah.
because the organizations know there's more to what makes an organization than just the financial gain back. And there's more to the organization, and there's some organizations where finances don't matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like, well, I don't want to say don't matter. They don't matter as much, right? The true end goal isn't how much money are we making because we invested $1 million into this program. It's how many lives are we saving because we invested $1 million into the program,
Right.
right? And those are the calculations that you're going to want to make. So it's not just a straight cost benefit sort of calculation. And I'm going to just go on the record and say return on investment and the money and like that monetary calculation is still part of level 4, right? It's a metric that is part of level 4. There's no need to, it's not a separate thing. It's just one metric, and you have to be measuring multiple things in order to really understand the true impact a program or initiative can make. Like, great, if something is giving you a better return on investment. But if it's at the detriment of employee satisfaction or employee productivity, or customer complaints, is that return on investment calculation even accurate? Right? So it's such a complex conversation to have. And there's no this one metric is what you get out of that level 4 result. You have to look at the holistic picture, because organizations are living, breathing organisms, and they are holistic. Like, if you make a change, it's going to impact in many areas, and you have to understand that impact.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. I mean, there's kind of two thoughts that came to mind as I was listening to you talk about that. Is even that podcast we did with Dr. Keith Keating,
Mm-hmm.
how his whole dissertation, right, was on
Yep.
working with CFOs and figuring out ROI of training evaluation,
Yep.
or training impact. And even he said different people in the organization measure it differently, right? So are we going to get into these like math wars and then talk about overcomplicating evaluation? Is that really what we
Mm-hmm.
want to spend our time looking at, right? Or slash and in our programs, when people are describing the types of problems that they want to solve in their training, the business case for
Yes.
training, it rarely has to do with ROI. It's definitely more on those metrics of like, we need to have people process these cases faster and reduce our
Mm-hmm.
backlog so that we can get back to our customers about their application of whatever.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we are, fixing this naval ship on time so that it
Right.
can get back out on the water and be ready for missions.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the key metrics that are actually speaking volumes to stakeholders.
Oh, 100%. Right. Like those, like that's what they need to know. Like, are they ready for mission? Because if they're not, that's a big problem, right? And there's no calculation in the world that's going to tell you that. There's no math equation. And to your point, we do not want to get into a math war. My math skills are not that great. Like, they're actually pretty good, I'm not going to lie, but like not CFO level good, right? And this is the problem why, like, I think that organizations need to find one system or one method and one framework to follow when it comes to evaluation, is because we are all doing things differently, that our numbers all mean different things. So there needs to be working together so that we can share data and we can understand what that data means. And now we're calculating it the same way. So like, if I'm calculating ROI the same way as my CFO, then maybe he's going to want a ROI calculation. But I'm going to tell you right now, as the learning person, probably not going to be calculating it the same way. And so we focus so much and we use that as an excuse not to say, well, I cannot get you that exact calculation. I can partner with your team to figure that out. And let's talk about the impact. And if what it is that you're calculating is a program that is a one and done program, don't waste your time even trying to calculate ROI, right? If you are not, I can calculate a performance package, right? That includes the foundational training and all the support and all of those things. I can tell you how that full package helped to impact an organization, because now it's more of a holistic solution. But if your solution is one-time training or a one-time announcement of an initiative and you want to know how it impacted the organization, no, ma'am, or no, sir, not going to happen. So I think there's that piece of it. So at Kirkpatrick Partners, we say level 4 is the easiest to measure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is every time is one of those moments, like when I say it, people are like it's like the record stops, the dance floor, everyone turns around and looks at me and they're like, what? And the reason that we say this is because, to the point of Jordan, you were sharing us some level 4 results that you want to measure, right? These what we call leading indicators. Someone in the organization is probably calculating that. And there's where I think that there's another misconception about level 4, is that we have to now start tracking level 4 data. And we have no business doing that. Like if it's a safety program, I don't have business, receiving, safety reports and all of that stuff, nor do I really need to add one more thing on my plate. what I will do is partner with the safety officer and say, how can we cross share this data? Here are the things that I need. I'm going to request it on the 15th of every single month, right? So, I'm going to put a little reminder on your calendar on the 13th to pull that data so I can grab that on the 15th, or I'm going to meet with you on the 15th for 15 minutes to grab that information, but let's partner together. And this is why I need this data, because I need to know whether or not this program or initiative is working. And so if you are thinking that you have to come up with all of the metrics and the measurements and collate all that data at level 4, that is the wrong way to go about level 4, and it will be very difficult for you to do that and everything else you have to do in your role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's the gospel. That's the good news. Like, hopefully that lets people take a deep breath, right? Like, oh, I don't have to like be a systems expert or, a business analyst. And level 4 really is just being able to ask the right questions and get connected with the right people. And I think often, folks that are in learning type of roles are excellent listeners and are great relationship builders. So that's in your skill set. And
Yeah.
so it's really encouraging, I think, a lot of times when we have that conversation in our programs of basically encouraging them to know that level 4 is already being measured somewhere in your organization. It's metrics that people already care about. All you have to do is connect the dots and tell the story, demonstrate the chain of evidence across the levels to show your contribution to that metric or series of metrics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we look at level 4 and gathering that data, I mean, it all has to be about relationships and working across silos and really having your pitch as to why you want this information, what it is that you're going to do with it, right? And knowing what the data policies are, right? And like the privacy policies and what is, personal information that I might not be able to access, but then being creative and understanding like, hey, well, I can't access that data. What other information do I need in order to have that data? And is there a way I'm able to get clearance, or someone on my team is able to get clearance in order to access that data, right? So I think that there's kind of that 2-part. I also really like what you said about the team and like, knowing, and you might not be the data analyst, you might not be the data scientist, and that's okay. That's why, we had the webinar defining the relationship, right? Who do you need on your evaluation team? If you're not going to be the data person, you're more of that relationship person, or you're more of the builder, right? Then that's a skill set you need to hire for, so they can be someone that can grab that data and help to make the dashboards, right? And help make the data make sense. You do still need that skill set a little bit. And, the technology will only do that to a certain point, but you need to know who can help get you there. The other thing is identifying who in the organization can maybe help you if you don't have the ability to hire for that person or that role, right? There's probably someone in the IT department, or there might be a data analyst department or a business analyst department that might be able to help you create that solution, because organizations, like I know people say like, CEOs don't care about training and learning. Correct. They don't. They care about performance. And if you say, I need support creating this dashboard so that we can then prove or show where we are doing well with performance and where we need to, we might need to make some adjustments, they will find time to allocate a resource, right? It may not be immediate when immediately you need it, but it can go into their own to-do list. So I think that there's that bit of it as well. Is assuming we hold so close to the process of evaluation because we think that it's only ours, but it's everybody in the organization, right? Level 4 truly is for everyone to be part of.
Yeah. One of my favorite, I guess it's a quote, but a memory I have of a mentor in a previous role is she said, "We all wear the same jersey." And so it doesn't matter what department you sit on. And we can often feel like we're also different when we serve different roles, right? Like one's the creative team, one's the tech team, but you all wear the same jersey.
Mm-hmm.
You are all working towards the same goal. And so when you can speak that language, you can focus on what you all have in common and what you're trying, whatever that North Star is, then a lot of those barriers, like you're saying, will start to fall because folks will start to see the training team as part of the same team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, all about that.
I love that saying, we are all wearing the same jersey. I hadn't heard that before. I'm going to have to borrow that
Right?
from your mentor. But I think that we have to understand that no one person owns that level. One person may own the evaluation process or be responsible for making sure that these things happen and that data is being collected, but it needs to be everybody. Everybody is investing in those results, right? Everybody's investing in the mission of the organization. So it really is a team effort. In your opinion, so one of the things that people will say about why level 4 is so hard is because they say, well, we have to wait like a year or two before. She's already rolling her eyes for those of you that are listening. That you have to wait a year or two before you see any level 4 results. Jordan, you had a very visceral reaction. Tell me your thoughts on when you hear that. And how often do you hear that in the programs?
I think it goes back to that initial point that you made about how folks will only see level 4 as those long-term organizational metrics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where there are some metrics that take a long time to actually see a change just because change takes a long time and there's a series of things that happen to get you there. But that series of things, that domino effect, the ripple effect that helps you get to the longer term 1 year out metric, 3 years out metric, those are also level 4. So that's why I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit because it's like there might be some metrics that take you a while, but if you're not paying attention to the more short-term pieces, then first of all, you're not going to have data to satisfy your stakeholders or even yourself or your participants to get those like short-term wins to know we're
Mm-hmm.
doing something right. But you're also missing a chance to course correct and to make
Yep.
adjustments so that if you get to that 1 year, 3 year point in time, you don't say, oh, shoot, we didn't achieve our goal. Oh, well, guess we have to start over. Or guess, where did we go wrong? Because you haven't been tracking the ripple effect from the most short term all the way up to that long term goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, could you imagine changing some like a whole program or initiative or implementing an initiative and then, a year later, a year goes by and you're like, oh crap, that didn't work. Now what? And you have to do what? Wait a whole nother year? Like business doesn't wait that long. CEOs do not wait that long. CEOs that do not show results for their boards do not stay in their seats for that long, right?
Right.
We don't have the luxury of time
Mhm.
in that instance, right? Or the luxury of waiting a year to see the final result. So if you are only identifying a, level 4 one final result and not also identifying those short-term goals along the way and those short-term quicker wins and metrics, then yeah, you're not ever going to achieve level 4 because your program will get cut likely before that because you weren't able to see what the impact was. Or when asked, right, hey, what's the impact of this program that you launched? You're like, oh, I don't know. Let me go back and gather that data. And it's like, no, we don't have time for that. We have to make cuts for next week. Program's gone, right? And so that's where those harder decisions get made. And unfortunately, we also sometimes are just not honest with ourselves about programs, right? I think we can have there's there's times in which we have like this ownership and we are so tied to these programs that we developed and that we created. We almost don't want to measure because we probably inherently know that that program is not going to lead to results, and lead to anything in level 4. And it may not be a fault of your own, right? The environment that program or the initiative is placed in might not be the right environment, or there might be systematic barriers that are preventing results and true change to happen. But we love this program so much and we believe in it. Should it be in the right environment, that we don't really want to measure level 4 because we don't want to know if it works. I have this hot take that most of the vendors on the trade show floor, so like the technology vendors and things like that, don't want to know, like would never want to do an impact study, because I don't know if they really want to know whether or not their tool actually works for their customers, like truly lead to impact. I would love to do an impact assessment of tools and see how they are if they're truly achieving results. I just don't know if they would want that, because they might not want to know the truth, right? The unbiased truth. But if you are a vendor and you are interested in doing something like that, please reach out to me. You can contact me on LinkedIn, Vanessa Alzate, or Vanessa Malara Alzate, and we can definitely have that conversation, because it is we've got to stop buying snake oil, and we have to stop buying the like shiny new object and know what works, what doesn't, what do we need, what don't we need, and what's actually going to help us get to results, right? Because it's not going to be everything. But that's my own separate soapbox on that.
No, it's actually so timely because I just did a consulting call with one of the groups that went through a recent bronze program, and the initiative they're evaluating is their content library. They want to know if it's worth the investment of their content library. And as I was asking them questions, about how they want to demonstrate whether it is useful or not, of course, we hear a lot of level 1 and level 2 stuff, right? Like, oh, we want to see if people liked the library, if they liked the information. And once I started asking harder questions about, well, how are people supposed to use the library? Like, what specific skill sets are we trying to improve and see on the job? It became a little bit more questionable. And that fear, I think, started to come up of like, oh, well, what if we've invested millions of dollars into this content library and actually no one's using it to change performance? And it's like you have to sometimes have those hard realizations where it's like, oh, we might have to actually do things really differently. And this whole team, their team was dedicated to like the content library. So then it becomes, okay, well, if this library isn't dependable, then what happens to our department and what happened? So there's a lot of fear that kind of comes into, well, ooh, do we even want to go there? Because what if we can't prove the value? That might mean that my job is at stake, right?
Wait, so for those of you listening, and it may or may not show on the video, I like immediately adjusted my seat because I felt like this was tea time. I wish I had some tea. So I felt like you just spilled some of it. Also, is it a major content library? Like blink twice?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're gonna have to tell me off the record because I'm very interested in hearing about this. Because I actually have a lot of thoughts about content libraries, and then I actually think most of them are a waste of time. Anyway, so that is very interesting because it goes beyond, right? Like where I was taking it, it's like whether or not the vendor would want to know whether or not their tool works, but also like, if you are responsible for that and that is your job, how does that change? Although I think it also, like in my very optimistic right now, sort of feeling, I also think it provides like a really cool opportunity to redefine like, okay, well, what was the goal of the library, right? Is it to help people create these skills? Within my job shifts, I'm not managing a content library now. Now I'm identifying how can we help people build these skills and get them access to it.
For sure. Well, and that was kind of the way the conversation went because I could start to tell they're like, oh no, like what do we? And so it's like, this actually might be a really cool experiment to talk about how do you change really like your job description to better serve the organization focused on performance. So yes, you are still managing this content library, but you are the strategy behind it in terms of how are you connecting specific content to specific roles and behaviors within those roles. And then doing the required drivers, using more of your time and resources to use those as reinforcement, follow up and ask them how they are using the content that they just learned, or, how is their performance changing, rather than only because all of the questions had to do with, did you like the content? Right? Is
Mm.
this library useful to your role, right? But no actual tangible, because I, used this micro learning module, I was then able to perform XYZ better. So it was
Ooh.
an interesting conversation.
This is another, let's put a pin in that for another podcast episode, because I think there's a lot of threads here to unravel. But I think that is I think part of level 4 too, right? Is like, if we find out that the program I developed did not work, what does that do for my job? What does that do for my department? But if I can tell you, like, if I can give you happy news, right? That 90% of the participants loved the program, right? Our NPS score was 9. 90% passed with an 80 or above on the first try because the questions were very easy. If I can tell you those things, it looks like we're good, right? But we're not actually achieving those results. So then tough times come up, recessions, what we're dealing with, unfortunately, now, new administration. And when they say, okay, give me the proof in the pudding that things are, that what you're doing is leading to an impact on the business, everyone passed with an 80 or above.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But
We're
how
still
much
leading to
more,
problems. Go
if
ahead.
I'm putting myself in the position of an executive or a leader, how much more impressed would I be if someone came to me and said proactively, hey, we've evaluated this and we actually think this investment is not something we should continue because it's
Mm-hmm.
not producing results. And here's my proposal for what we could do different to actually be more useful to the organization, even though it's bad news because, oops, we invested some money that didn't actually do much for us. Because I am coming to you and proposing new ideas of how we can better use our time and resources, to me, that's a business partner. Like,
Yep.
things are not always going to be successful.
A
So
thousand
it
percent.
takes some self-awareness and responsibility to say, let's do something different, rather
Mm-hmm.
than waiting for someone to ask me if it's producing results. And then I'm like tail between my legs, like, oops, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, and to be clear, because I think that I maybe sounded a little bit harsh. This is also something that I think about for our own programs.
Yeah.
What is the value that I am providing to my customers when they buy my program, right? Is it truly worth their time and an investment, or am I just selling them something knowing that it's not going to work? I mean, I think part of the reason that we built a community, why we're building other programs and we're building out, our services and capabilities and talking more about them, like when it comes to staff augmentation and hiring instructional systems designers that are Kirkpatrick certified, right? Coaches, consultants, is because we know that going through one training program is not going to be enough, right? Because you still have to change the systems. You need the support. You need accountability. And that's what, the community is meant for, right? To provide that support, provide that accountability, to provide continuing education. It's our own level 3, right? And then having, Kirkpatrick experts on staff to walk alongside of you, right? I think that is where the value comes in. But that only came in because I had to take a real serious look about what's working and what's not working, what the customers were saying, what customers were returning, what customers weren't, or if they were returning, they may be returning at a with less of an investment, right? It's like not as many of their team members. Well, like, why are you doing that, right? And having to ask very critical questions that made me feel uncomfortable, right? Because I just acquired this new company, right? And I obviously have a lot on the line for it. This is my family's livelihood, right? So I want to make sure that it works, but I also am very prideful about the work I put out there. which is why like updating the curriculum was like the first thing I had to do, because I want to put out really great content and really great experiences and show you that learning can be an experience. But I had to walk that walk. But it's not easy. Like I'll tell you right now, like I think about this all the time. And it is hard to take that self-reflection and that look. I know that maybe what you're doing isn't actually working, but it gives you such a beautiful opportunity to find what is working, and really truly provide results for your organization by having that pivot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, friends, this was a lot for level 4. I feel like I did not plan to do the last maybe 15 minutes was not at all like pre-planned, but when we went there, and we really got a little bit deep. This very last bit feels like a little bit of a therapy session. So thank you all for participating in my very public therapy. I shall pay you all a $25 copay. Just kidding. I appreciate you, Jordan, for this time. And make sure you all come back for next week, our next March Madness episode. And we're going to get into our favorite level 3. Talk to you all soon, folks.